Shut up and sit down.
Welcome to the Answer is Yes podcast, where we will explore the cause and effect of just saying yes in your everyday life or in business. I will dig into topics that are not just stimulating, but will challenge you to be better in everything you do. The podcast is based on the simplicity of saying yes to opportunities you might encounter every single day. I'm your host, Jim Riley. Join me in my first series titled Blue Collar Redefined. Welcome to the Answer is Yes podcast, and happy post-Thanksgiving. I want to throw, I don't know if it's an apology or not, but sorry that I didn't have a show last week. It's the holiday week, and everybody was busy and doing their thing, and we just thought it'd be a good time to take 1 week off of the show, and I know so many of you look forward to it, so I apologize for that. And hopefully everybody had a great Thanksgiving. I know I did. I took my kids out to the Polar Express in Williams, Arizona. It's kind of become our tradition for Thanksgiving. And then if you haven't done that, by the way, the Polar Express out of Williams, Arizona is unbelievable. These people do a great job of wrapping you into the movie, down to singing songs, hot chocolate and cookies, wearing your pajamas, the whole bit. And somehow they manage to pick a cold night every single time I've been there. So if you're looking for a family trip, there's probably tickets available still before Christmas. We get out there early enough where we can go to the reindeer farm, which is about 10 minutes outside of Williams, Arizona, heading towards Flagstaff. And there's actually about, 75 to 100 reindeer walking around. You can pet them and feed them. And for me and my family, it's just a great experience for the kids, and we love doing it. So there's a little fun tip for you around the holidays. I, as a father, have been committed the last, going on 5 years now to make sure that my daughters have the best Christmas season possible, and that's where I kicked that off at. So anyways, I wish you all the best through the holiday season, and again, hope that you had a great Thanksgiving, spending it with family. I've had a lot of time to reflect as well, a lot of driving time, thinking about some of the people that I do some life coaching on the side. I also do some consulting for some businesses. And I've had a lot of time to think about my clients and customers and people that I do work for. And an interesting topic that came up with somebody was this notion of cliches. And I guess you could say I throw a couple cliches out at the end of each show, which is what you believe is what you will achieve. And David Meltzer talking about having more than enough. And, to a lot of people, those types of statements are just cliches, and they come in and out of their life without putting a second thought to it. But for some, they turn that into just exactly what they stand for. And there's a reason why people use these cliches or allow them into their life, because if applied appropriately and you really do believe in them and the strength and power of them and positive thinking, they will more than likely work for you. And I have seen that time and time again throughout my life. And if people have questioned my success and why I have some things and others don't, or it looks like everything's all put together on my side, I really am a believer in what I believe is what I'll achieve. And I believe in those cliches, because if you can apply them, there will be some benefit. I have on my desk, and it was interesting because I've talked to a few people recently about this book. It's called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Now, this book is not a new book by no means. And what's interesting to me is so many people have not heard of it. And it was such a powerful book when it came out. 1963 is when this book came out by Napoleon Hill. It is such a powerful book about earning money and putting yourself into the right mindset to be successful. I would highly recommend it still. It's still very relevant. So it's Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And there's a dozen other great books out there, way more than a dozen. But, dig into them. Open up your mind and the power that your mind has to be successful. And I think you will find that you can create something significant for yourself. If you question that, please reach out to me directly through a direct message, and we can talk about it, because I have literally quadrupled my income in the last 6 months through projects and things that I'm doing at a time where, for me, my own personal time is the most important. And the projects that I've picked up and the projects that I'm working on have allowed me to continue to have my personal time with my kids and my family and do the things that I want to do, but also allow me to do something for others in a positive way on all fronts, monetarily and functionally for their businesses and or for them as individuals. And a lot of that comes from me identifying my own goals, dreams, and desires, and where I wanted that to be, and mapping it out on paper and what that looked like, and going after that each and every day with a positive and open mind for that. And, again, I don't want this to feel like a cliche or a speech or I don't know, something that isn't factual. But if you're struggling and you want to find a path, reach out to me. I'd love to help you. I'm not asking for your business, but I just like to encourage you to think about some of the cliches in your life and consider applying them. It's the holidays. I'm sure we're all going to get advice and stories and politics and all the other stuff that goes along with the holidays with our friends and family. And maybe this is just a good little piece of advice for you. With that being said, I think it's so important that we as adults and humans understand that people are always watching, whether that's a good or bad thing. But sometimes I think if we can be a positive role model for others, and if we can show people that we're willing to work hard and be genuine and kind and all those things that we expect in ourselves, that if somebody is watching, it might just change their life. And 2 weeks ago, I read a letter on air from a friend now. His name is Mychal. He grew up in my neighborhood. And as I stated in the letter, I invited him. Well, I actually went to his house, and I offered him a job. I went to his parents first and asked if it was okay if I talked to him about working for me. And he was a teenager at the time. And they said yes, and he said yes. And I didn't realize the influence that I had on Mychal at that young age. I was just looking to get something done around the house. But for him, it was a business opportunity, and he turned it into that, and it turned his life into opportunities, one thing after another. And I thought it would be so appropriate to have Mychal on the show today. He's 25, and if you're listening as a 25-year-old or somebody that's in that age bracket, I think that you can get a lot out of the show with Mychal. Or if you're a parent of somebody that's maybe getting out of high school, going into college, or maybe getting out of college, going into the workforce, you can also hear Mychal's perspective about how his parents treated him, the support that they gave him, and how he transitioned from one thing to the next. I think there's a lot of value for everybody in the show. And I look forward to sharing that with you. He called in from his family's house, so it's a call-in, and I look forward to hearing your feedback on this one. Thanks. All right, well, welcome to the show. I've got my guest on the line, Mychal Tamaki. How you doing, buddy? It's been a while, huh?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Jim. How about yourself?
I'm good. I'm so glad that we're touching base again. We haven't had a long conversation, for a while because you moved to Texas and now you're back in Cali.
I sure am. There's no better place to be.
So does that mean you're never going to go back to Texas, or you just like it here that much?
I wouldn't say I'd never go back to any place in the world, but I definitely know that California is home.
Yeah, well, that's where I met you, was when you were living with your parents. I don't even know how old you were at the time. Maybe you remember, do you?
Yeah, I mean, I was in middle school. I was a youngin'. I mean, I'll never forget the day you walked inside my garage that one time and came into my kitchen and offered me a job.
Well, Mychal, you were just that kid in the street that I knew you were going places, and it's really why I wanted to talk to you today. I think that you have an interesting perspective on life. I shared your letter that you sent me on my show 2 weeks ago, and I've had a lot of feedback about it, and people had asked questions and they wanted to know a little bit more about you. So I thought, what better time than now to have you on the show, and we can talk a little bit about, you growing up and where you're at. By the way, for those listening, Mychal's 25 now, and he's off and running for his career, and I just would love for everybody to hear his story.
Yep, absolutely.
So Mychal, with that being said, let's just assume that you graduated high school, because I know that. But
Yeah.
Tell us what was going on in your life about the time you graduated high school, and what you were thinking about for work, and some of the decisions that you had to make at that time.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been, a very inspired and driven individual. I don't know if that's because I grew up in a blue-collar household, but I've always wanted more out of life. I was always looking for that next thing that, could propel me and my family into that next level of, quality of living. And I've always had an interest in, or I always thought to myself that I wanted to be, something of like related to business, business owner, CEO, COO, whatever it may be. But I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I just had this like general conception of, I wanted to, make a big impact and do big things.
Mm-hmm.
The way I began to figure that out or hone in on what it was that I wanted to do was I started trying things. I've done a lot of things, ranging from when I was really young, me and my buddy, we would go up and put flyers up to start a recycling service. And that never did, anything amazing, but it was just on to the next thing, it was just one thing after another. And, ultimately, and you hear it all the time, but, you try again until you succeed. And I truly believe that, because like every little thing that you try and you fail, you take something away from that and you build upon it. So, in my earlier college years, I even started a clothing line. I learned a lot, very valuable lessons. That's kind of what propelled me towards what it is I do now, because with the clothing line, that was right on the cusp of the fitness industry blowing up, as well as social media. So this was like right when Instagram came out, and, fitness wasn't huge yet and trendy. And my clothing line was geared towards the action sport lifestyle industry. So it was very relative. These were all the things that, built upon what it is that I do now. Because when that social media came out, and this fitness thing was booming, I had to learn all these things about social media and how to build a website, how to do, product sourcing overseas, and all these different things that now I use currently on the things that I do. Now I know how to do internet marketing and run Facebook ad campaigns, and now I know how to source products.
Yeah.
So it's just a bunch of different things that I tried throughout. And like I said, like it wasn't just one thing. It was a bunch of little things that led to where I am now. I've done, back in the day, I interned for you. That's one of the things that really opened my eyes to what's possible if you're willing to roll the dice and go out and work for it.
Yeah.
And I think I told you in that letter, that's one of the things that, really inspired me and still drives me to this day. It's that inner flame, that fire that clearly we both have, you and the things that you've done and accomplished, you kind of lit that for me in my youth when I was young and impressionable. You walked in my garage door and you said, hey, like, I think you'd be a great fit. You want to come, get on board? And I was like, absolutely. It's like the whole thing about, always say yes, which is what you preach, right?
Yeah,
had I not said yes in that very moment, I would have missed out on a lot of things, a lot of opportunity, a lot of learning. I tried to be a sponge as much as I could, even little things, just hearing you talk on the phone, how you talk to, your business associates, how you, how you run your business. And yeah, those are all the things that kind of just led me to where I am today.
Mychal,
I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about a couple of things that you brought up, though. First of all, I find it very interesting. You talk about bettering your family, and you realize that if you started working, that you can help better your situation. So, what was it that gave you the thought of doing that? Were your parents getting you involved in working with them? It really is. It's very mature of you at that age to want to do more, learn more, work harder for your family unit. And I know personally that you're very close to your family, but I am impressed that you were thinking about them in your decisions.
Yeah, no, it's just something that always came. I don't know if it's because, I grew up in a great household, very loving and supportive parents, but, my grandparents, they came over here with nothing, from Japan.
Mm-hmm.
My grandpa, if he could work right now, he would still be working. It's just, he's so old and broken down now that he can't do it. He's been blue collar all his life. He worked manual labor until he was like 85 years old. And then, my pops, who raised me, he's a construction guy. He was raised by his grandparents, who